Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the second day of the Expo. Right now, I did want to remind folks again, and you just heard this, that we are going to be covering information for some fully funded programs that are for undergraduate and graduates and alumni as well, through the Boren Awards and the Fulbright US Student Programs. So give me one moment and let me share my screen with you. Okay. And hopefully everyone is seeing this. Okay. So first we'll start off with the Fulbright US Student Program, which may or may not be familiar to you. Okay, so the Fulbright program has its program mission, its core to the program is basically, it's pretty simple, to foster mutual understanding between nations, advance knowledge across communities, and improve lives around the world. And that's sort of at the very core of and purpose of this program. So just a little bit of background, it was created in 1946. It's sponsored by the U.S. State Department and the Educational and Cultural Affairs Office, ECA for short, which actually is home to the National Study Abroad Office, which, there is one in the federal government. And it's administered by the Institute for International Education, or IIE. It's also administered in partnership with foreign partners abroad, which are government institutions as well that collaborate with the United States to offer this program. And this is their diversity and inclusion statement, where they are striving to ensure that the program reflects diversity of the United States and societies abroad as well. So they do encourage involvement from people of all backgrounds, academic, socioeconomic, and traditionally underrepresented people to participate in their programs. They welcome those applications, and they are open to people applying regardless of race, color, national origin, sex, age, religion, geographic location, socioeconomic status, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity. So getting down to the basics of eligibility, this program is meant for graduating seniors or recent graduates. So the idea is that by the time you participate in the program, you are holding a bachelor's degree. However, you can also be a master's candidate while you are applying, and you can hold a master's degree by the time you participate. However, they do not want students who have a doctorate. So you can be a graduating senior from an undergraduate program, a master's candidate, or a doctoral candidate, but no PhDs or EDDs at the time of completing the program. There are some country-specific requirements, within each application that are above the basic eligibility. So we'll cover a little bit about that later on. And just to give you a quick overview, so there's over 2,200 awards in over 140 countries worldwide. The two types of awards, the two most common types of awards are the Study Research Grant Awards, where students will conduct independent study at an institution abroad doing a master's program. Or you can do an independent research project abroad, or arts project abroad, or you can do a combination of those two things while you're abroad. It depends on the country that you apply to, whether how you choose which of those three study research grant options that are available. Then there's the English Teaching Assistantship program, which students are able to choose this program if you want to do teaching English abroad as a teaching assistant in the classroom. And the level of responsibility depends on the placement and what kind of classroom authority you're given, what kind of role you play is going to depend on where you're placed. Sorry, I had to turn off some notifications that kept popping up. I hope you weren't seeing those. Okay. So the benefits for the awards didn't work. Sorry. The benefits for the awards are that before your program starts, you're going to get your airfare covered, a monthly stipend for living, and you are going to have health insurance while abroad, accident benefits as well. Depending on the program, these are program-specific benefits. You may be able to have dependents accompany you if you have children or spouse, a research allowance, tuition paid if you are attending an institution abroad, language lessons, which would facilitate you being able to conduct a research project abroad, some enhancement, cultural engagement activities, and then disability accommodations that can be made if requested. And then following your participation in the grant program, you are part of this Fulbright alumni network, and they're very active, very in touch with one another, very much involved in helping each other find and create opportunities. You will have access to the alumni website that the State Department hosts, which again is another opening to potential academic and career opportunities. You will have status called non-competitive status in the federal government for hiring 1 year after completing the program. And so this status is typically reserved for veterans. And so this is a status that will give you access to job consideration ahead of all of the other applicants who are applying for the same federal or federal contractor job. So it's kind of a nice perk of having participated in this program, because it kind of gets you your resume on the desk of the hiring people ahead of the normal applicant pool. You have a Fulbright affiliation for lifetime, for your life. You have the email address that they give you. It's good forever. Unlike our Cal State Fullerton address, where that expires once you graduate after a certain amount of time, and then you have access to the Fulbright Association. So you have a lot of support post grant. Okay. So breaking down the application. Within and here I'm talking about the national application, there's the basic personal data that they ask for, which program are you going to apply to, in which country. You have to choose one, you can't apply to more than one. So, I work with a lot of students who are just like, oh, this one would be so great, but this one, how do I narrow it down? Because as you saw, over 2,200 awards in over 140 countries, that can sometimes cause a little, what is it called? Paralysis of the analysis. And so if you need help to narrow it down, we're here to help you. There are a couple of essays that apply to both types of grants. There's the statement of grant purpose, and then your personal statement. And there are some prompts for both types of essays that will help you to make sure you're answering and providing the information that the reviewers are looking for in helping to make a determination about your application. There are references. 3 references are required for both types of programs. Possibly, depending on the program, a foreign language evaluation may be needed. Unofficial transcripts at the time of application is fine, although if you are put forward as a semifinalist, the host country of the program you're applying to may require official transcripts. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And then if you're doing a research study grant, an affiliation letter with the institution or the organization abroad that you are going to be affiliated with, that's going to help you facilitate your research, for example, or give you access to the labs that you want to use for conducting your experiments is going to be needed. So that actually requires students to reach out to institutions and organizations abroad to introduce yourself and explain, I'm applying for this Fulbright opportunity. Your organization offers state-of-the-art equipment and data, et cetera. I don't know if I could be affiliated with you and to be able to have access to use these things. And most institutions around the world are familiar with Fulbright and have, in my experience, students have had positive responses when they are doing this type of outreach. And if you don't know where to start again, that's why we're here to help you kind of get going. There's faculty here on campus who will be willing to help you make those connections as well. And then if you're doing, say, an arts application, oftentimes you'll need to submit a portfolio of your work or your performances. Like we have a student applying for the 2022-2023 cycle, and she is a student of music, a very specific conducting, choral and orchestral conducting. And so she had to, in this environment, kind of pulling together a portfolio of recording of herself conducting has been difficult, but she's been able to do it. But that's the kind of thing she had to do that, say, an English teaching assistantship applicant would not need to have to submit that kind of information. So factors in a proposal or an application being selected. If you're doing a research project, they want to know that you can actually accomplish this project in the time frame that your program will run with the resources available to you. So they really are looking for an explanation of the project that breaks it down so that they can envision how you're actually going to be able to accomplish what you're setting out to do. They're not looking for you to, I don't know, solve world peace, how do we get those kinds of things? But they really are looking for real world application feasibility. They want to know, why are you qualified? Why are you prepared to do this project or, do this teaching assistantship? Do you have any language preparation if it's required? If it's not always required to have language as of the host country. Some language is always helpful, but it's not at all required. It just depends on the program. Some might require a certain level, some require no experience at all. There are some preference factors for certain locations. And so that's information that people can view on the website itself, just to read a little bit more, to know, okay, where we're trying to send students to places that are traditionally underrepresented around the world. So places that are out of the traditional study abroad locations. Think of it as outside of Western Europe, outside of Australia, outside of New Zealand. If you're, not to say that if you apply to those places, you're not going to be considered. It's just, they really are trying to help students get to those underrepresented geographic locations. Students, they do look to make sure students have evaluated themselves and meet all of the requirements that the programs in the individual countries themselves have laid out, in addition to the basic eligibility requirements. And then they do consider diversity as one of the factors when they're making decisions. So, yes, that's all pretty clear. Please feel free to put questions in the chat and be sure to try to address them as we have time. Okay, so just to give you a basic timeline, right now we're kind of in the promotion phase actually for the next cycle, which would be 2023, 2024. But, I'll use the current cycle to give you a little picture of what the last year has looked like. So starting back last April, some even as early as March of last year, we're starting to design and prepare and start their applications. Now, tomorrow is our campus deadline, our internal CSUF deadline, where students are submitting materials that are basically drafts of what they're going to be submitting for the national application, the deadline, which is October 12th. So about a month from our deadline. So what this does is it gives us between September 10th and October 12th a chance to meet together with the applicants, with the campus committee, and it's not a vetting process. The interview is basically a chance for us to get to know the applicants, to assess the application materials and give feedback. And the feedback is meant to help the students strengthen their application even more. It's not a, oh, yes, you get to apply, or no, you don't get to apply. That's not the purpose of these campus committees. So we don't want students to feel as if this is some kind of gauntlet they're running, and if they don't make it through, they can't apply. It's really meant as a support to the applicants. So then the national application happens in October. Between November and December, the review committees on the US side are reviewing the applications, and then they will begin to notify students, have they been made semifinalists? Have they made it through on the US side? And then the host countries will begin reviewing applications. And between January, May, sometimes earlier, through summer, through June, they're notifying the finalists. And it's staggered. Not everyone is notified all at once, depending on the country. Some are notified very early on, and some are not notified until much later in the summer. And so that's a little bit about the Fulbright. Please feel free to take screenshots if you need to and want any of this contact information. And I'll also put in the chat some helpful links to our internal application, the Fulbright website, and also the next program we're going to talk about, the Boren Awards. So there we go. Sorry. So the Boren Awards, and I'm sorry if I'm running through all this. I'm hoping it's all making sense. It is a lot of information, but just know if you ever need, recap of things we discussed, I'm available for advising on either of these programs. And also, we are having a separate Boren Awards information session later in September, on September 27th, and we will be sending out information to campus. It's already on the campus calendar, and we'll be posting about it on our Instagram just as a reminder for students. So, and that will be with a Boren representative as well. Okay, so Boren Awards. So very quickly, there's two types of awards, which there's the Boren Scholarships and the Boren Fellowships. The Boren Scholarships are for undergraduates to study abroad, and the fellowships are for graduate students. So these programs are different than the Fulbright in that they require that students be enrolled for the entire time that they are in the Boren program, okay? So eligibility is similar to the Fulbright, where you do need to be a US citizen. Naturalized citizens are included. They do require that the focus of the program chosen is intensive language studies. So that is a big difference. There's a specific language focus with these programs. As I mentioned, you have to be matriculated at a US institution the entire time you're in or applying to graduate school, with the expectation that you will be matriculated at the time of your participation in the program. Okay, and you cannot be a dual citizen of the country that you are applying to. And feel free to scan the QR code if you want to look at that further. Okay, so some selection criteria for you. So they are looking for students to be able to relate their application and their essays to issues of national security. And national security is very broadly defined here. So they're not looking for people who are planning to go into a military science degree or a military career. This could be, any policy issue that's related to national security or foreign affairs. So, for example, national defense, diplomacy, sustainable development, scientific cooperation, environmental issues, global health, public security, public administration and population growth, food security, those types of things. You see how broad it is. And I think a lot of students from diverse backgrounds would be able to find a way to relate their experience and academic background, but as well as possible career aspirations to some of those topics. Again, if you need some guidance, we can try to provide advice on that side of things. It should be detailed. Your essay should, try not to talk in too broad of terms, but it should be specifically related to what the applicants are interested in and what you plan to do with this experience afterward, and or what would your plan be, even aside from this experience. There is a public service commitment of at least 1 year following participation in this program. And so that's why there's all of that support. We'll talk a little more about it in finding an opportunity to get hired to fulfill that commitment, whether it's with the government or a contractor, a federal contractor. So I hope that makes sense. If you are going right into a advanced degree, after this, your service requirement is deferred. So more criteria. So again, I talked briefly about the explicit focus on language and culture. They don't want the language to be just this sort of peripheral component to why you're doing this. It's the focus of why you're doing it. Prior to, leading up to, and after, how is language going to be central to what it is you're going to be doing throughout your life. Kind of in the last slide, I mentioned that commitment of public service, where 1 year is the minimum, but they actually are hoping to get applications from people who are interested in a longer term commitment. And that applies also for the language study. And so they want to see, okay, the program that you've chosen abroad has that language study focus. For example, our last Boren awardee studied Arabic in Jordan at an institute that was specifically for language study. And it was very easy for him to explain, like, this is one of the leading centers in the world. It teaches this type of Arabic. This type of Arabic is so useful because it is spoken widely throughout across regions in the Middle East and in other Arabic speaking territories. And so he made a very good and detailed case about why this language institute, why this location specifically, and why this type of Arabic. And so that's just to give you an idea of how central language study is to this program. If the language is not front and center, then the application is thrown a little bit into doubt, I think. Depending on the program, the language level that you need to come in at, I think with the exception of French, where you have to have an intermediate level, I think other countries, you're not necessarily required to come in with any language experience. And we'll see a little bit more about that. So 2 types of programs. We have the flagship language institutes, again, talking more language. And these are ready-made language institutes that exist and are already up and running. Students don't have to find the program. These are the programs you're applying to. And then there's self-identified programs, which in the example I just gave you, our student found this program on his own to apply to, where you make the case for applying to this program that is not a language institute. Again, available at all levels except for French, which requires the intermediate high proficiency level. They are fully funded. So when you see the cost sheets for these institutes, it's like lodging, zero, board, zero, all of the costs are zero. And there are just a few miscellaneous costs that the applicants do cover for themselves, such as passport, that sort of thing. They, as you can see, here, I'm not going to put the list to you there. One thing that is different with these is it features a short course at the beginning of the program in the United States before going to the location abroad. And then the self-identified structure is where the scholarship and the fellowship apply, where you're finding your own program. Again, for undergrads, it's going to be a study abroad program, and we can help you find a program that would fit the parameters the scholarship would need. Again, they would have to have that sort of language central focus, and we have a lot of programs in the preferred languages that that could be of interest. And then with the fellowships, you're going to be doing you know, you have different options, that whether it's academic study at the grad level, or doing an internship, or doing research, kind of like the Fulbright research when you think about research study. And I'm keeping an eye on time because I know we have a lot of presentations that you might be trying to get to. So the awards for the self-identified programs can be, you know, up to $25,000 for the year-long programs. Anything 25 weeks and above is considered year-long. And the cost breakdown is the same for scholarships and fellowships. The only one that is short-term, I do have to point out, those are only for STEM programs because STEM majors have a hard time getting away during the academic year because of the way courses are structured. Sometimes summer is really their only option, and that's why they are allowing that shorter period of time for STEM majors. And then on the fellowship side, there's actually an option to study here in the United States or US territory, whereas that's not an option with scholarships. Okay. So as part of your application, you're going to be building a program budget and building in all of these components that you see here on the screen. And what Boren says is, you know, don't try to build a budget that cuts out costs. Like be realistic and try to budget for every single dollar you think you could spend abroad. You know, they're not asking you to be frugal. What's not covered there, you can see passports, vaccinations, dependents who might travel with you in your own personal travel or entertainment. But those other types of costs that you see there, they said, you know, use the budget that's available, build it based on reality, but don't try to build it, you know, with the least expensive thing, because by the time you actually book a flight, the cost could have gone up to $300. So just try to be realistic and not don't worry about saving them money, because they give you this tier of money that you can apply for, and they will let you know, you know, yes, you apply for 25,000, we're going to give you 22,500, and hopefully maybe you can make it work. But you don't have to be the one cutting your budget for them. So this is just to give you an idea that typically in the United States, students choose short-term programs abroad. However, if you look at the Boren fellows and scholars, the majority, like well over the majority of students are doing the year-long program. So you can see how Boren supports long-term study, study abroad and living abroad, which is, you know, not the national norm when it comes to study abroad in the United States. Some country preferences. So anywhere in the blue and green, these are, again, we're going through this quickly. So I'm going to put those links in the chat so that you can see all of this for yourself again later. Let me do that right now. Because we're about to, and you're welcome to stay if we go over, but I don't want, if you have to go to the next session at 11, please, you know, feel free to leave. I won't be offended. We are recording this, so it will be available later if you miss anything when you leave. So the country preferences basically are those in blue and green. If you are applying to a country that, well, actually, you can't apply to a country that's in gray, like I was mentioning. So North America, Australia, New Zealand, and think about Cold War era Western Europe. Those countries are not part of the Boren program. Okay. And then countries that you see in, let me see, that are marked in green. Sorry, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian. Because of the likelihood that travel approval for those countries can change, it's very up and down, very volatile, especially in this pandemic world we live in, but also due to, you know, political relations. The travel status to those countries can change abruptly. They want it's mandatory to pick a backup for those countries. Just so that, if you're selected and they're all of a sudden your program shut down, at least they have another location where you indicated, I can also do my program here and still have this same language focus. Okay. So here you can see the language preferences, and you can also probably understand why they do not require students to have anything other than novice level proficiency, except in the case of French again, because many of these languages are like, you will never have come in contact with them outside of traveling to those countries where they're spoken. Some exceptions, obviously Japanese, Korean, Tagalog, Vietnamese here, Mandarin, Cantonese. In our, here where we live in OC, you'll hear those languages all the time. But it gives you some insight into just these are considered languages critical to national security, and they're desperately wanting people who can learn and speak these languages so that they can help with diplomatic relations and help with those connections within those countries. Some of the field of study preferences. So the one on the left and the one on the right, it's not like one is more preferred than the other. They just divvied them up into two sides so that the STEM ones were more obvious, because those are ones that qualify for that shorter period of study abroad. But these are all preferred areas of study, which I think if you look at all of them, I believe they're all represented on our campus in some way. But you can see the diversity of disciplines here. And you can understand a little bit better when I mentioned earlier how the broad definition of national security here can definitely be seen, relating all of these different areas to national security. I think, when you see how many different academic backgrounds they prefer and will consider, I think it's a much bigger list than most people anticipate. So I started earlier, I mentioned that support related to that public service requirement of 1 year prior to participating in the program. So there's a lot of support that is given to the awardees after they complete their program. So, there's a service team that is supporting you. You're plugged into a network, kind of a job board where they post available opportunities. There's, they used to have big hiring events. I don't know if they're still doing that in person. The Boren representative will talk more about that, about how that's happening now when so much is happening virtually. But I imagine they're still doing that to some extent, even in the virtual space. There's special hiring authorities for other federal jobs. There's that federal employment seminar. That's the big in-person one I was talking about, which likely has had to be moved into a virtual format. Boren Forum, resume consulting, in addition to career services you have here on campus. And there's assistance, I believe, with student loan repayment. I believe there's deferral for repaying your loans if necessary while you are on the program, if that even applies to students. We do like to highlight that these awards are, they're really supportive for ROTC cadets who, related to their commitment to their ROTC and military science programs. It's a direct correlation with this program. And so in addition to the Boren awards, there's also another project called Project Go, which sends cadets, I should say, abroad, or actually to locations here within the US that allow the cadets to still comply with their program requirements and their physical training requirements that they have to keep up for their ROTC program. And the Critical Language Scholarship, it's another type of award through the State Department, which, as you can probably imagine, is hand in hand with supporting language study. So some priority agencies and contractors with the federal government that work directly with Boren to hire and help awardees complete that public service commitment, and also people who are just kind of looking to have that career track, that career path with the government. These are agencies that are priority agencies for Boren awardees. But then, there we go. So are all of these other Boren agencies, federal agencies. So NASA, the CDC, which we hear from every other day. It's the one with the Peace Corps, and the list goes on. So if you're interested in going into public service, it's a really great pathway for the Boren awardees. And so after all of that, I will talk briefly about the application elements, just like we did for Fulbright. They do have essays for the Boren, again, talking about your personal qualifications, but also talking about that direct connection with national security and how you choose to elaborate it related to those different policy issues I mentioned earlier. Again, there's going to be some prompts that they give you so that you can start to outline your thoughts and create your essay. I don't expect you to memorize everything in this presentation. And again, there's that QR code you can scan to go to the Boren page and look at those application components after this. You need 2 letters of recommendation if you're an undergraduate scholar applicant, and possibly, optional 3rd if you are gung-ho. And then there are 3 required for fellows. And then depending on the program you're applying to, I imagine those who are applying to a country program where the language spoken is French in Africa and not the FLAGSHIP Language Institute, you will need to get that evaluation to make sure you're at that intermediate high proficiency level. Transcripts again, your study plan summary, and then your, if it applies, your research abstract methodology and creation. And then the budget is also going to be part of it. And again, the Boren representative and the website go much, much further detail than what I'm going to cover. So I will cover a few things for you, but I think giving you those links and resources will also help you get a better sense of putting the application together. So again, that national security argument we talked about for your first essay, and then your second essay, again, your personal qualifications. How are you prepared for this extended study opportunity abroad? And also, how does this tie into your future? And what are your qualities that will make you a leader in government service? So I think the prompts are pretty clear. They're pretty broad, and I think they're deliberately made that way so that students can bring in their own experience and personal attributes to the essays to explain, okay, why am I a good fit for Boren? Why is it a good fit for me as well? Okay, so just some application deadlines. Unlike the Fulbright, the next Boren deadline period is actually coming up this winter. So if you're applying for a scholarship, your application is due on February 2nd, 2022. And for fellows, it's a little bit earlier, January 26th, 2022. So if you are looking at doing a study abroad program this spring, and there is that overlap with intensive language study, you may want to look into applying for a Boren scholarship because and it's in it has a language, obviously, that is one of the preferred languages. You still have time to apply to the Boren scholarship. I'm sorry. Fall, for fall 2022, apologies, or for summer. So you have that opportunity, and I think students should still consider this for their study abroad in the coming academic year or summer, as another way to financially fund that opportunity that you're looking into. It may be an unexpected source of funding. Okay, so, and finally, here we have just some contact information for the program itself. Again, you're also very welcome to contact me in the Study Abroad and Global Engagement Office. I am available for both Fulbright and Boren advising to help you get started with both of these program applications. So thank you very much for joining, and thank you for staying over time. I appreciate it. And I look forward to helping you all with your applications.